Hopefully, folks will be streaming in. Welcome, everybody. For those who are just coming into the room, we're going to get started in a few minutes with our latest Healthy at Home workshop. Jeffrey, you're coming in from, you're logging in from Sacramento?
El Dorado Hills.
El Dorado. Where exactly, is that right outside of Sacramento?
About 25 miles from downtown Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Which direction?
Up Highway 50 to the east.
Okay.
So it's at about 1,100 feet elevation, and it's above the fog and below the snow.
That's a good place to be, I guess. All right, let's wait. We're gonna wait a minute. I'm in, by the way, I'm in San Francisco. It is, it's foggy as usual in my house. It's like gorillas in the mist where I live. So hopefully,
What's
that?
San Francisco.
It's in Mount Davidson area. There's a big hill that has a big cross on top of it, and it's west of Twin Peaks. It's right next to Twin Peaks, and you could see the ocean about 2 days a year from where I am, and the rest is just it's about 20 degrees cooler and cloudier than every place else in the city. All right, we're gonna wait a couple more minutes. See if we recognize. I'm starting to recognize some familiar names in the attendees list. Good to see some old and new friends. All right. Well, Jeffrey, I think we're gonna get going. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to Healthy at Home workshops. This is the latest installment in our series of online educational sessions dedicated to helping folks thrive at home. That means kind of living more safely, more comfortably, more productively, more joyfully, wherever they live for as long as possible. Today we've got a great session. Excited to introduce Jeffrey DeMure in 1 second, and we're going to talk all about accessory dwelling units, formerly and affectionately referred to as granny flats. And I don't know if that's politically correct or not politically correct. Hopefully it's okay. But they're increasingly popular, and we're going to learn all about best practices and what's going on there, and give everybody lots of opportunity to ask questions and get their questions answered. Before I introduce you, Jeffrey, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Denholtz. I run an organization called Aya Places, and and we partner with the good folks at Vivalon, formerly known as Whistle Stop, to develop and produce this educational series. And you'll see me at this session and at subsequent sessions, and I'll be introducing guest speakers and helping to field questions from you guys, the audience, and in general, just try to make things run relatively smoothly. Two things that I want to make clear and remind everybody about. One is this is supposed to be interactive. This is not a huge group, but this is all designed for you guys, the attendees, to get the most out of this session. So if you have a question, please don't hesitate to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should see one if you move your cursor over the Zoom screen. Feel free to ask a question anytime, and we'll get to it before the end of the session. The second thing that I want to mention is we want your feedback. We'll send you a survey after the webinar, but if you have any questions or comments or observations during the webinar, don't hesitate to share those as well. You can use the Q&A button to share those, but if you can, remember, use the chat button to share those, and that's another button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. I think that's all I have to share with everybody. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest. Jeffrey, pardon me, I'm going to make sure I don't miss anything too important, but Jeffrey is a Sacramento-based architect and a senior living expert with more than 35 years in the home building industry. He's the founder of Jeffrey DeMure and Associates Architects Planners, Inc. And he's also the author of one of my favorite new books, Livable Design, and it's all about how you can make your home environment more livable. And it's a great book. There's lots of beautiful images, and you actually see, you can see my notes. I took lots of notes. So highly recommended to everybody, and we can give you information as to how you can learn more about livable design and universal design principles and what it takes to create a more kind of joyful and accommodating environment. With that, Jeffrey, I'm going to turn it over to you to take it from here. If I've missed anything, please don't hesitate to fill in the blanks.
Oh, no, Jonathan, thank you very much. It's good to be here today and to talk about home and to talk about home enhancements and to talk about things that can bring vitality to the experience that you have in your big investment, which is your home. I get really excited about doing that. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And never has this phenomenon been more important than it is today. In the last 6 months, we've all gotten to the place where we realize the significance that the home has in our life. Even if we were people that traveled a lot or that went to work or went to recreation on a regular basis and were away from our home, quite a bit, the emphasis that has been placed on the home in the last 6 months as a result of the pandemic has fueled industries, Home Depot, Lowe's, the real estate industry, the new home industry, the resale home industry has all been impacted by what's going on in our world right now. And as Jonathan and I were talking about a moment ago, about a 10-year cycle of what happens in our society has been compressed down into about a year. The most profound of which is the working from home phenomenon, where many people are in a situation now where they're working from home. And so employers and business owners and leaders have realized that this is a viable kind of solution. You might ask, what does that mean to me as an older adult? And what it means to you is that there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of sensitivity that being developed as a result of this phenomenon that we're experiencing right now. So I think that we're going to have some good things to talk about relative to what can be done. Does that sound good, Jonathan?
That sounds great. I'm going to turn off my video, but you have the ability to share your screen. You have a presentation, I understand, so I will, but I'm going to pop in. I'll keep an eye on any questions that come up, Jeffrey, and let you know if we need any answers. Thanks very much.
Sounds good.
All right.
So traditional granny flat, what does it mean and where is it going? Well, it's transformed quite a bit from what it once was, which was a temporary residence or room for a family member, into something that is a lot more economically viable, a lot more exciting, and there's been some changes to the state law that have allowed accessory dwelling units, as we call them, or ADUs, to play a bigger role in what it is we can do with our homes and our home sites in these days. Livable design is a concept that my organization co-founded with Eschaton Communities. They're a large older adult provider of services and facilities in California. And we did this 10-year pro bono project with them. And the culmination is this program called Livable Design. And then at the end, I wanted to just share with a few things. If you're going to do any upgrades in your home, if you're going to do any changes, modifications, these are a few things that you can do that'll kind of take your home to the next level in terms of its relevance in what's going on with this emphasis on healthy homes that we all have these days. So that's generally what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to start with, what is an accessory dwelling unit? Well, it is a small home that is adjacent to, connected to, or vertically integrated into an existing home. And they go by a myriad of different names: cottages, secondary units, and so ADUs, accessory dwelling unit, is sort of an umbrella for all these things. And as I mentioned, they can be attached, they can be detached, they can be above. What we probably are not going to talk about today is that basement unit that, as I tell my teenage sons, that if they continue to play video games, they're not living in our basement. They're going to college, and even if they come back from college, they're not living in our basement and playing video games. So we just want to eliminate any opportunity for a basement and that kind of living in our conversations today. they can be constructed on any lot that is zoned a residential lot. And they can be legally rented in California as well. So those are some exciting things that have happened. And as I mentioned before, there's a couple of different configurations that we have. There's, of course, the detached freestanding, which is separate from. There's attached, so you can share a wall, you can join those together and sort of live independently from the two different residences. You can convert something that is existing in the home now, an upper level, an attic, or a garage space that can be converted into what could be called an accessory dwelling unit, or building above the garage, the airspace, as we've called it, that space that exists above a garage that we can add on to with a few structural enhancements that make that a viable alternative for a constrained spatially site. Okay, so those are generally the things that represent how we can do an accessory dwelling unit. Now, the life cycle of an accessory dwelling unit, and this whole notion of flexibility, I think, is one that's tremendously important, because it's easy to look at our station in life right now and say, oh, this is where I will always be. Well, that may be the case, but it may not be the case. So let's walk through a couple of scenarios. One of which is that you have an adult child that returns home after college, or should be in college and isn't able to go to college, and an accessory dwelling unit would provide a space for them to be able to do that. For young professionals or students, or for a caregiver to be able to have a residence for them there. And then, you know, your life changes and you might not need as much space. And so a young family moves into the primary residence. It might be your family, it might be someone else's family. And then perhaps you or a family member moves into that accessory dwelling unit. And then when you decide to live on your boat and give up your residence altogether, then you can rent out the house and you can rent out the accessory dwelling unit. So there's cash flow from those two pieces of your property. So you've maintained your nest egg, you're off doing something that you love, that you enjoy. Maybe it's another residence somewhere else, or maybe it is that boat that you're living on down in the harbor. Okay, so from a big picture standpoint, and from its inception, it's intended to kind of bring the family closer together. And we couldn't have found a better time in a really tough situation that we're in relative to the pandemic to think about how you can bring people together that are part of your family, or people that you're close to, extended family members. So there's always the boomerang child, right? The one that you throw out and then they keep coming back. And they can definitely have an impact on our living. During the first 4 months of the pandemic, I had all four of my children living at home with us, and one of my son's girlfriend as well. So we were packed in there. We had a lot of people in a space, and we thought that we were kind of allowing the two older ones to be off in college, and colleges said, you can have them back for a while. So we lovingly and graciously took them back and made a new family member with my son's girlfriend, and we all learned how to kind of get along. So that's a phenomenon that none of us could have anticipated. But this notion of the boomerang child, millennials are returning home even pre-pandemic at an amazing rate, to the tune of 25 to 30% of all millennials will be back with their parents for a period of time. So this is something that I think will probably, if you look at the expense of new homes or housing in general, and when you overlay that with the willingness of employers to allow their employees to work from home, you can be almost anywhere and still be productive, contributing, and kind of have a career. And so how the home is morphed in order to accommodate that, or needs to, I think is part of the appeal of an accessory dwelling unit. You've got your home without an accessory dwelling unit, and that's great. Maybe your home is paid off, maybe it's mostly paid off, but it's just sort of there, and you can't really get anything more out of it except for that enjoyment. You can remodel, of course, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end, some of the things that you can do that will bring more value to that home for you. But you've got equity sitting in your home. And if you turn it into a rental income, then you can obviously increase your monthly cash flow. So you're going to have an expense that exists for building that accessory dwelling unit. You can use a little bit of your equity in order to build that accessory dwelling unit, get a new loan on both pieces of property because the value will be enhanced. And you can then have that accessory dwelling unit as something that you can potentially rent out. And again, one of the laws in California says that you can rent that accessory dwelling unit up until the year 2025 legally. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be extended because the state is in such a tough position right now relative to affordable-ish housing that this is one solution. And that's why accessory dwelling units, why this moved through and was approved so quickly, because there's a tremendous need for it. And that's always a good place to start as an investment when there is a bona fide need for something. And that's what exists right now with accessory dwelling units and that property that you have around your home. And case study, we have a friend of mine who's been a client for 30 years, and one of his adult children was returning home. So he had a rental property in Old Roseville and wanted to take a garage and raise it and turn it into an accessory dwelling unit. So the family owned that rental property with that detached garage on it. And this is what it looked like before. And what we did with it was that we preserved the existing setbacks because they weren't quite as generous when we did this a year ago as they are now. And we replaced it with the 615 square foot accessory dwelling unit. It's about 25 feet wide and it's 29 feet deep. And it's a lovely little space. And these are the kinds of things that for one person or for a couple in a lot of cases, it allows something that is integrated into an existing neighborhood, which is something else that I really, really love. I'm all about multi-generational living. My wife and I live in a neighborhood we bought into, and it was built in the early 80s, late 70s. And so a lot of the people that had built their homes in there, they raised their children there, and they're a little bit older. And so what's happening is that some of them are moving down into a smaller home, but a lot of them are staying there. So young families like ours, I said family was young. I didn't say I was young. So young families are moving in, and the neighborhood is just got a totally different kind of feel and fabric. That's the benefit from a cultural standpoint of having an accessory dwelling unit. Now all of a sudden you've got people of a variety of different generations that are all integrated in together. I think it's one of the best ways that we can mine the wisdom that exists throughout the generations, and to bring sort of this idea of it's a lot easier to talk, to understand, to relate to someone when they're kind of part of your environment a little bit, your neighborhood, when you're walking the dog, when you're going out for a stroll, and you run into people that are they're infusing this new kind of energy into the neighborhood. And I just think it's a tremendously beneficial way to take an existing neighborhood and enrich it. So yet another advantage, in my opinion, of doing these accessory dwelling units.
Hey, quick question, Jeffrey, from Sam.
Yeah.
Sam says, I've seen information for 600 square feet or less, or 800 square feet or less, without needing a lot of kind of requirements. What is the maximum square footage detached ADUs that can be built on the back of a lot without, I guess, what's the maximum size of a detached ADU on the back of a lot?
Under certain circumstances, 1,200 square feet is the largest. But I'll get into some of that in a minute as we talk about the state law and what has been done lately. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So it's 1,200 square feet under certain conditions. So this new state law has made it easier. You can add 2 ADUs to your property, a full ADU and what's called a junior ADU, which I'll describe in a minute. And they're permitted ministerially. That means over the counter. That means that you don't have to go through an arduous process with the building department, with the planning department, that it's not subject to a discretionary review. There's some significant teeth in this law that is encouraging agencies and municipalities to get these entitled and approved quickly. There's no parking that's required for an ADU conversion of existing parking spaces or replacement parking that's required when you take off a garage. In other words, if you take away the garage and you add 2 parking spaces, you don't need 4 parking spaces. That doesn't have to happen. Step backs have been reduced to 4 feet. The standard in most municipalities is 5 feet. And that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but as an architect who does a lot of small homes, that extra foot really means a lot. And if you can demolish an existing garage or carport, and then you can build that new ADU within the same footprint and maintain the existing setbacks that may be reduced. So if you had a 2-foot setback for your garage or carport, well, that's your new setback that you're allowed to go to. And then in addition to that, there's no owner occupancy requirements, as I mentioned before, until 2025. So you can rent it out. And I really do believe that that's going to be extended. This is a big deal. There's no impact fees for ADUs under 750 square feet. And impact fees for over 750 square feet, those are reduced from what you would typically find on a new home, a single home on a lot. And the maximum application time is 60 days. It used to be 120. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, we'd be thrilled to have 120 days for the review process. So 60 days is light speed for these agencies. And then this one is really huge. Homeowners associations and CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, they cannot reasonably prohibit you from developing an ADU, almost seen as a discriminatory thing if by not letting an accessory dwelling unit be allowed into an existing neighborhood. So that's very much of a big deal. So that's roughly the overview of the accessory dwelling unit. So now, because we're speaking to a group that's sensitive to changes generationally, we wanted to talk a little bit about this program that I brought up at the beginning, livable design, and kind of what it means to you if you do a new accessory dwelling unit. I absolutely positively believe that you must do it so that it's livable design compliant. I'll walk you through a few of the steps. We'll get you a book at the end of it. One of the things that we wanted to do was to highlight the fact that it's just not possible to anticipate all the things that we will go through in life. I think that the current pandemic is a good example. From my standpoint, as a young man at the University of Arizona, I thought I was made out of bulletproof vest material, Kevlar, and nothing was ever going to happen to me. And I got on my motorcycle one night, and a speeding car on a side street saw that would be differently. So 15 broken bones later, and 6 months of convalescing and operations and putting myself back together, I can tell you that a lot of these things that we do relative to livable design have nothing to do with a specific generation. We feel so strongly about this that we're doing entirely new communities. In Davis, California, we did the cannery by the New Home Company. It's got about 780 homes, single family detached, apartments, condominiums, and townhomes, and accessory dwelling units. And every one of those residents is livable design compliant. And I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future. And as I get into it, I hope you will see why it is that way. So universal design, which many of us have heard about for a number of years. I'm a product of the 70s. I started college in 1974, and there was this program that emerged that was called universal design. And basically it was a lot of people that were you know, my contemporaries, and it's like, yeah, it would be really cool to like design homes and do all this really amazing stuff. And so over a 35-year period, that program didn't get much further. But like any great idea, industry will capitalize on the benefits that it represents and will bring that out to the public because they see the value in it. So it's as we got into developing universal design or livable design, we looked at universal design. We tried to find a program that met the requirements so that the builders, mainstream builders and developers and custom home builders would be able to go to a place, they'd have resources, and they'd be able to quickly, you know, determine how to integrate these basic necessary components into new homes. It sounds like it's a very simple idea, but universal design is very, very complicated. I'll give you one example. One of the 7 principles of livable design. I keep looking off screen because I'm here with my colleague, Chelsea Richardson. She helped me write the book, Livable Design. She's one of the owners in our company. Her husband and I, who is the principal of the company, as well as she, have been, they've both been with me for a long, long time. I couldn't, nor would I want to, do what I do without this amazing person, my friend and colleague here, who keeps me on the straight and narrow. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, one of the 7 principles of universal design is that your appliances shouldn't hurt you. Okay, as an architect or a builder, how do you write a specification so that your appliance shouldn't hurt you? Well, the manufacturers figured it out. So now we've got this pan sensor technology, and we've got smart appliances. I did an interview with some of the nice people at KitchenAid at the International Builder Show in Las Vegas right before the big shutdown. And to see the technology that has come along, both Bluetooth and smart appliances, when universal design was brought forward, they made a place for it, and livable design has taken that place setting that we thank universal design for setting up, and then we've been able to sort of plug in what's happening now from a manufacturing and a design standpoint into universal design. You use universal design compliant things every day. The ketchup bottle, which the inventor of that bottle received $5 million from the ketchup company for that patent. So that was a pretty good idea. So it's been mainstreamed into a lot of what we do. Something that is easy to forget is that 1 in 5 Americans has a disability, and half of those have a physical implication. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in 6, 1 in 9 children under the age of 16 has a disability, and about half of those have a physical implication. So this is something that it's part of our culture, and we don't talk about it a lot. And I'll tell you why we don't talk about it a lot in a minute. And it's because it has to do with how things look. So let me give you the core elements. It took us 10 years, hundreds of interviews, panels on leading older adult and home building professionals from throughout the country, 10 years in order to bring this to fruition. So in order to get it to be simple, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to get things simple. It's like Winston Churchill sent a memo out to one of his cabinet ministers during World War II. And the cabinet minister said to him, "Mr. Churchill, why did you write me such a long memo?" And Prime Minister Churchill said, "Because I didn't have time to write you a short memo." So in order to get something that is brief, it takes a lot of work. So we've narrowed it down to these 5 or 6 things that will create a wonderful, safe, beautiful environment for homeowners. 0 threshold entry. That doesn't mean 0 step, it means 0 threshold. You go from indoor to outdoor without a step, without any vertical movement whatsoever. My former business partner, he had an 80-year-old mom who'd moved into a senior community. You'd think they'd know better. She was going from her home to the garage, and there was about a 5-inch step. She fell, she broke her hip. She never came out of the hospital. The impact that these little things have on our life, something that's very, very small. The notion that I mean, the scale is not very, the bathroom scale, it's not very high off the floor, right? But if you consider how scary it is to get up on that scale and you're only going up about this far, I'm sure that's why I'm scared when I get on the scale. It's because of the step. It's not because of the information. But you think about it, right? I go to my doctor's office, and before I get on the scale, he's got grab bars on the wall, and it's only about this high. This little vertical element has a profound impact, and it keeps us from going out. When I had my 15 broken bones, I can't tell you how difficult it was to try and get around, and even the smallest step had a really big impact. So that is fundamental and tremendously important. A bedroom on the ground floor, that is really important so that there is basically one single floor living. An adaptable bathroom on the ground floor. And what we like to do is we like to add 12 to 18 inches on the strike side. This is the door, this is where it closes, this is the strike side. Add 18 inches, 12 to 18 inches on that side of the door throughout the livable design compliant home. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to get in and out of that space very easily. A little footnote, all the doors throughout these homes are 3 feet wide so that we can get into them and out of them easily. If we're carrying a child, there's some of us, the acronym for my demographic is actually DOBY, daddy older, baby younger. I have an 8-year-old son. And so I'm at a time in my life where I'm carrying groceries and a little kid and all the things that kind of go along with it. And this extra space, these 3-foot doors throughout, have a big positive impact on the enjoyment that you have for your space. Kitchen with the appropriate amount of clear floor area, and that's all articulated in the guidelines of livable design. The doorways that I just talked about and the circulation space, the clear circulation space around them. And then we leave it up to the builder, designer, and homeowner to choose from 6 different categories that will enhance the livability of the home. So those are little things that we think make just a whole lot of sense. This is something that doesn't make a lot of sense. So why is most of the industry and most of mainstream America, the home building community and the remodeling community not talking so much about this adaptability need that we have in virtually all of our communities? Is because a lot of them are really ugly. Once you put up something like this ugly cattle rail fencing, it immediately says that I have an infirmity, that I'm frail, or that, and what it does is it sets people up. Well, the bad people out there, they unfortunately look for things like this that indicate that that there might be a shortcoming within your mobility profile. And you contrast that with the other image, which is at the demonstration home that we did, that we gave hundreds of tours to, that was 100% livable design compliant and had about 130 of the different components in it. But you can still get to the front door either way. I'd rather get to the front door based on that solution. This is a very inexpensive way to do it. We can always spend more money to make it more gracious and more grand. But we can also not spend very much money. And that's where I feel I'm being responsible as an architect, to be able to bring that level to all of our communities, to make it more of a democratic solution for more people to be included into the solution. So that is something that is tremendously important to how we work through these zero threshold showers. I can't tell you how many times after a tough night, I could lie and say because the kids kept me up all night, but that would be true. But then there's that night out with my wife, and I get up the next morning and I stub my toe on the shower. So little things. When I was all busted up, my leg was broken in a bunch of places, and I had a really big cast on. I couldn't lift my leg. So being able to move comfortably through spaces would have been a wonderful thing to do. This is an example of that zero threshold entry. This is the kitchen example is a drop-down counter space, which again, what we want to do is to make this a seamless integration. So one of the tenets of basic principle of livable design is that it needed to be adaptable. You can adapt the home over time. It had to be attainable, not ridiculously expensive. and it had to be beautiful. This notion of having it be beautiful is a really big deal to us. Again, you can spend a lot of money and make something really beautiful, but you don't have to. And I would contend that it's a more creative and more successful designer is the one that has a limited budget and can make things look great. And we do a lot of that work. The last thing that I want to say about this notion of things that are beautiful is that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. You can look at it, you can experience it, but ugly will hurt you every day. It just kind of hurts in the soul. So that was one of the other premises, one of the foundational elements of livable design and what we tried to do. Last thing is clean and healthy living. So I'm not talking about your eating habits or drinking habits, but I am talking about indoor air quality. There is now for heating, ventilating, and air conditioning components that you can buy that are freestanding, HEPA house filters. You can add on to an existing forced air system if you have one in your home. You can add on a clean air component, a filtration system, which will greatly improve the quality of your indoor air. It eliminates VOCs. It eliminates pollen for a lot of us that have sensitivities and allergic reactions to a lot of the things that grow out there. We want to always provide a lot of appropriate, ample, abundant natural light. When the pandemic of the 1920s hit America, the architectural community responded with contemporary architecture, with clean and open spaces. Corbusier did this beautiful facility that was intended to help people that were stricken by the pandemic. And one of the things that these architects all determined as being very important was a lot of natural light. And having a lot of natural light, it's therapeutic, it's beneficial, and it's fairly easy to control. No or low VOC, that means off-gassing from paints and from particle board furniture, particle board cabinets. They have formaldehyde in them and they off-gas into the space. So not having any of that stuff in the home creates a healthier kind of environment for your home. And then antimicrobial surfaces, something that I'm kind of excited about. The copper and brass have a molecular structure that doesn't allow the COVID cooties to attach to them. They're easier to clean, and I'd say that the COVID cooties kind of bounce off, and that probably sounds crazy, but they just linger above the surface. They never really kind of get down into it, and they sort of molecularly have a negative impact on the COVID cooties. So you're starting to see a lot of face masks that have a copper lining now, and that's why, because they have a tremendous benefit. So what does this mean to you? If you are redoing your home, absolutely consider these materials for countertops, for plumbing fixtures, and for furniture as well. And then chemical-free cleaning products. My wife, I like to say that if I get up to get a glass of water in the middle of the night, if I come back to bed, the bed is made. My wife, who is a very successful entrepreneur, a phenomenal spouse, and an amazing mom, one of her values in life is that things have to be clean. So she cleans on a regular basis throughout the day. And I'm like, why are you cleaning again? And she goes, it's therapeutic for me. It makes me feel good. And so our house smells a certain way, but the things that we use around the house, they're not obnoxious kinds of things that many of us kind of grew up on when our moms, kind of discovered bleach, and so it's not like that. So chemical-free cleaning products, something that affects your home every day. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I thank you for you letting me visit with you for a while. I'm excited for the potential that exists within your home and your home sites to maybe create something that will benefit you and will benefit other people, your family members, members of your community, people that couldn't afford to live in your community may now be able to live in your community. And that just makes for a much, much better inclusive kind of community. As Jonathan said, we're making a free copy of the book Livable Design available to anyone that wants them. And so, yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Jeffrey, thanks so much. Can we spend a couple of minutes? There's a couple of questions that are outstanding. I just want to make sure that Kat and Dana's questions I see here are answered. I'm going to read the first one. Kat asks about owner occupancy requirements until 2025. Does that apply to the main residence and the ADU? Can the homeowner rent out both? Or is it just the ADU?
I'm pretty sure it's both. That's a great question, but I'm pretty sure it's both. Is Kat in a community where they don't allow the homes to be rented?
I don't know.
Kat, that's a great question, and I'd like to give you a more comprehensive answer. So
I think it depends on the municipality.
It may be municipality dictated, because there's some municipalities that don't allow you to rent out homes. So look, if Jonathan can I'll get the information to Jonathan. Jonathan can get the information to Kat.
Absolutely. All right, and we got another question from Dana.
That's an outstanding question, by the way.
Absolutely. I think Dana has a good question too. It's definitely on my mind. How do you get going with building an ADU or designing an ADU? Do you recommend going through a housing builder and the developer to do the ADU soup to nuts, or should the owner do it themselves? Kind of step by step. And another question: and if you're hiring somebody, how do you vet the builder? Lots of questions there.
Yeah. So what's our friend's website? Dan, who does Dan write for?
Oh, Home Advisor.
Home Advisor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a good.
Yeah. So homeadvisor.com, my friend Dan de Blasio from Brooklyn. I'm from New York. So anybody got a problem with that? So Dan de Blasio, my friend, he's raising 2 kids in Brooklyn. He's a hero to me. And he writes for Home Advisor. Homeadvisor.com has tremendous resources. And that was a multi-part question. So let me see if I can break it down. I'm an architect, right? So how hard is it to build a house? And I have a team of professionals that I work with. It's like, I don't need a contractor. Well, my wife and I have been married for 28 years. And how I really like to put it is that we've had 27 happy years of marriage. We've been married for 28. And that 1 year when we were building the house, it was not so happy. If you have experience, if you're a general contractor, or if you have been in the trades, go for it. You know what to expect. I thought I knew what to expect, but my client in that situation was the toughest client that I ever had. So just a word of caution. Can it be done? Absolutely. Would I suggest it? Only if you've done it before. I think that the best thing to do is to find a good builder. As an architect, this is going to sound heretical, but like I'm a heretic, but find the builder first. They will be able to help you find a designer that will be able to kind of lead you through this process. So homeadvisor.com, I think they've vetted the people that are represented, right?
And house as well.
At house?
House with a ZB.
House.com, yeah.
House. There you go. Okay. Did that answer the question?
Well, if you didn't answer the question, we'll find out, and we'll get more information to Dana there. I've seen a couple flurry of other questions. So Sam has a couple more questions about Sacramento ADUs. So I'm looking at the question, Sam, I hope I'm asking this correctly. Any ADU, is this still the case for Sacramento ADUs? Any ADU larger than 800 square feet must meet the lot coverage requirements of the property zone. So does that mean if it is 800 square feet or less, there is no lot coverage requirements?
Great question. Yes, that's what it means.
Okay, Great. All right, another question. What about prefab tiny houses do you recommend? Do you recommend them? Prefab tiny houses. I guess if they, do some of these tiny houses, do they employ livable design principles?
No, it would be near impossible. So we know people that have lived and live in tiny homes, and we have the ability to help people get real with us. So if you would like to have people using your washer and dryer and your shower, then a tiny house is a great alternative. If they have lived a good part, if they, the tiny home resident, have lived a good part of their life on a boat or have been, merchant Marines in the Navy, and they're used to those tiny spaces, then great. But you should think of it more as a small boat than you should a house in terms of how the spaces get laid out. The people that we've talked to, they all had one thing in common. They looked like jailers because they had key rings for all their friends' houses, so that when their friends were away, they were the house sitter, or when their friends weren't away and they needed a washer, dryer, or a full-size bathroom, then they would go to their friend's house and they had all their keys. So it's not a great long-term play in my mind.
All right. And then I'm just seeing a comment from Fritzy. Hi, Fritzy. Recommending that for folks who are interested in learning more about ADUs and specific regulations, it might be worth reaching out to the city that you're living in to secure that information regarding permits and regulations. In San Diego, for example, there's an ADU coalition of professionals, as an example. So good advice, Fritzy. Yeah, and Jeffrey, one last question for me is, so if where to begin? I mean, really, you provide a lot of amazing, great information, and in terms of next steps, I mean, do you have any recommend? Do I go outside to my backyard and measure the square footage? How do I start thinking about whether this is something that makes sense for me, and how to weigh the pros and cons, and how to figure out the budget? That's a lot to chew off. I know we're towards the end of our session, but do you have any recommended next steps for people that are interested? Money.
You have to start with a budget.
Yeah,
absolutely, possibly. A couple of calls to go to Home Advisor, get some information about how to work with a contractor, find a couple in your area, find out generally what the cost per square foot is going to be to complete something like this. Look at your finances, how much equity you have in the home, how you plan on paying for this, right? I always like to start with what's it going to cost, right? What are we working with here? How much money do we have, to work with? And then what will the return be of that over time if you're looking at it as something that will be somewhat of an investment, right? If it's something that you're going to rent out, how much could you rent it for? If you've got a relationship with realtors, I'm a big relationship guy, which is why Jonathan and I get along so well. We both are kind of wired that way. And when you start with the people that I love to talk to people and pick their brain, because if you have a relationship with a real estate agent, right? Friend of a friend, start there. Start with the things that are known. If you have a friend that's a builder, start there. If you have a friend that's a banker, go to school on other people. And you're going to be surprised at how many people have some experience in this. I don't want you to get frustrated. I just want you to use what you have right now, right? Which is talk to your banker. They probably finance this stuff. They may have financed a house remodel lately or a garage remodel. How much did that cost? They'll be able to tell you that. So you can start thinking about these things. Chelsea, you got anything you want to add to that?
I think that what you just said is that almost everybody knows somebody, but they may not know that they know that person. So
Yeah.
to start talking about it as something that you're interested in.
Yeah. When I start putting things out there, it's amazing at, you know, what kind of starts coming back. So if it's something that you're genuinely interested in, right? Go to Home Advisor, do some cursory sort of thinking about it. Look at your home site. You know, have I got a home site that could accommodate it? Where might that be? And then, like Chelsea said, start putting it out there, right? I mean, right now we're having a lot of conversations like this, right? You know, text your friends. If you're in a book club that's like this, a Zoom book club, hey, I'm thinking about doing an accessory dwelling unit. Do you know anybody that's done one? Do you have any resources for me? And then things start to kind of come together. And so I always like to start with those two things, the budget and relationships, right? Who do I know? Very smart and I'm kind of lazy. So I try and go to school on other people, those that have gone before me, as often as I can in life.
Sound advice. Sound advice. Last question. I don't want people to walk away from this webinar thinking that they need to build a new house or do kind of reconstruction, a major remodel to employ livable design. And so I'm just wondering, you know, for those that aren't ready to kind of commit a big budget or commit a great deal of time and effort to a remodel, are there things that you recommend that people look into or explore that can, you know, help transform their home into a more livable design compliant environment without hiring an architect and a you know, developer? Did I just open a whole new can of worms?
Yeah,
Right.
it's we get regularly, and I'm wired to be a really positive person. That's who I am. The glass is always half full, and it's a really difficult thing to make more space where there isn't space, and that's the basic kind of idea behind livable design. Now, that being said, appliances, if you're looking at changing out your appliances into smarter appliances, plumbing fixtures, right? Those kinds of things. Creating some space below cabinets so that if you have a walker, a wheelchair, or an oxygen piece of apparatus, or a stroller for your kid or your grandkid, that they can kind of get tucked underneath some of these appliances. And you know, the big thing is, you know, if you've got a shower that you can turn into something that doesn't have a curb on it, that's huge. In addition to that, there's some very beautiful new plumbing fixtures for the shower that make bathing just a whole lot easier. And the major manufacturers, plumbing manufacturers, have done a phenomenal job of creating livable design compliant fixtures for kitchens and for baths. And those things would absolutely enhance you know, your quality of life by incorporating those without spending a ton of dough. Yeah. What about, what was the first one? Yeah. So the other thing is, if the decorator component has the word throw in it, throw it out. Throw rugs and throw pillows, throw them out. Trip hazards are a huge deal in homes. I can't tell you how many people, I mean, we all know people that they were doing wonderfully in life, and then they fell slipped on a throw rug or a throw pillow, and now they're, you know, they're in a wheelchair or a walker, or they're going to rehab, physical rehab, Chelsea. So they're going to rehab, you know, 5 days a week. So if it has throw in the description, throw it out. Get out. I go to my mom's house, and I mean, I'm throwing out her. She's like, what are you doing? You're throwing out all my stuff. I go, I'm saving your life. That's what I'm doing. It's a big deal, right? We've all tripped, all of us, right? We've all tripped on a throw rug or a pillow, and they just, They might look good. They have no place in your house. They're dangerous.
No, that's great. I appreciate that additional insight. You know, there are things that we can do around our own homes to conform more to livable design and to really make life a little bit easier day to day. I think we're going to wrap it up here. You've been phenomenal, Jeffrey, and so has Chelsea. I've really enjoyed connecting with both of you. I hope to reconnect sooner rather than later with both of you. Hey, Chelsea, thank you so much. Want to urge everybody to take advantage of Jeffrey's generous offer on the book, Livable Design. It's awesome. I also want to thank the folks at Vivalon. They're our partners, and they're phenomenal, and I've come to love them big time. And so thank you, Joanna and Nancy and others at Vivalon. And remember, this is being replayed. This is being recorded, so you can access this replay at the Aya Places website. So feel free to go back and check it out. And also, don't forget to sign up for additional webinars. We've got a whole slew of upcoming sessions that we think you're going to be excited about. So that's all for now. Jeffrey, thanks again. And I'll follow up with you guys very soon. Take care.